Hello and welcome to The Enthusiasm Project, Season 2, Episode 11. And it has been a while, so we're going to talk about that and the whys behind that. But I've been thinking about why that is, and I think that there's some important stuff to kind of go over. So today what I wanted to really do was kind of take a look, I guess, like, not that there's a huge curtain, but a look behind whatever curtain there is at sort of what it does take to strike or try to strike a work-life balance, or at least a semblance of one, when you do have a normal job and you're also trying to do something else on the side. And, you build a business and all build a brand and all the things that we talk about a lot in the different episodes here. And it's really easy, and I think that it's really common to sort of see those things as very glamorous and very easy, and you only kind of see the highlight reel, but that's definitely not an accurate look at it. Not that it's bad, not that it's all actually depression and sadness or something, but it's a little different than what it might seem on the surface sometimes, and so I kind of wanted to just take a look at that real quick. And so for me, what that really kind of comes down to is over the past month or so, I'm actually recording this on Leap Day, so literally the last day of the longest February you can have. This month has been really tough for a lot of reasons, primarily health-related reasons. It's kind of crazy. I suffer from migraines. I've dealt with that my whole life. It's awful. I don't really want to go into it because I hate talking about it so much, but it's a lot more than just a headache. It's genuinely something that's, incapacitating and debilitating while it's happening. And sometimes you can go really long periods of time without dealing with it. But this month, I've had 3 of them, and it's just been like, you get knocked out for a couple days each time, on top of being extra busy at work with just day-to-day work things, plus special projects we're working on, plus some trips we're planning with students. On top of, then I also randomly got the flu. I don't know what it was like a 36-hour flu, and that was kind of crazy, just on top of everything. On top of then trying to take a couple trips and visit some family and friends, and then try to work together with Heather to keep our LLC, to get our LLC going and to actually make it what it needs to be successful. It's been a crazy 29 days, and I'm really exhausted. And unfortunately, what it comes down to is there's a time where you just have to realize there aren't enough hours in the day to do all the things you want to do or need to do. And the reason that I haven't had a podcast in a few weeks is just because that was kind of the decision I had to make. And I had really thought of I'll just come back with an idea or a topic about whatever sounds interesting at the time. And I won't even mention the fact that there haven't been episodes for 4 weeks. But one of the things I value most and have always valued most is authenticity. That's one of my biggest, most favorite, most valued values, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I think that it's a good chance also, just because I see a lot of stuff that you probably see, which is the highlight reel, like I mentioned, of what everybody's doing. Everybody can make it look so easy. You see people, sometimes they have tons of kids and a job and their own business and, all this stuff, and they're just spinning all these plates, and they make it seem so effortless, when obviously it's not. Obviously it's totally not, and it's probably a lot of work, and there's probably so much behind the scenes that you don't see, and so much of that struggle. But it's nice to present the polished face of everything rather than just the continuously struggling face of everything. And I understand that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but for the sake of authenticity, especially when it comes to this podcast specifically, a big purpose of this is to look at that, to sort of use myself as an example of what that journey is like on trying to build something, especially when you don't just have all the time in the world to do it, because who really does have all the time in the world to devote on the things that they want to? And so essentially, work is obviously a non-negotiable. Gotta go to work, gotta do that. And then there are just certain other things Heather and I went to my grandmother's 85th surprise birthday party. Well, not her. It wasn't her. It was her 85th birthday party, which was a surprise party. It was not her 85th surprise party in a row, which is what it sounded like I said. But that's kind of important. So, taking a day or, well, it's a whole out-of-town trip and stuff. So, yeah, taking an entire day and then not making a video, not recording a podcast so you can go share stuff like that is a priority on top of having to go to work. And then with the time that's left, we do have our LLC officially official with bank accounts and everything and IRS numbers and the whole deal. Like, it's like a real thing that can actually exist as a taxable entity, which means that it's got to be real, right? If it pays taxes. And that's a lot of work to put that together, and then to also, more importantly, plan what we're going to do to actually make that generate revenue that could be taxed in the first place, because paying taxes suck, but having to pay a lot of taxes means you're doing something right, I guess, is my naive way of looking at it. And then continuing to build the YouTube channel, of course, and then a podcast on top of that. And there just comes a time when you have to go, okay, what is the priority? What's the thing I want to do the most right now? Is it podcast? Is it YouTube channel? And as much as I love the freedom of podcasting and the intimacy of it, if I have to choose between this and the YouTube channel is the bigger priority right now. And that's just the way that it is. And I feel a little bad saying that, but of course, I think that's probably pretty obvious. That's where I do want to direct energy, and there's been a really great momentum building up, especially over the past few months, like through the holiday season, even into now, which the beginning of the year is usually traditionally kind of a slump period where things don't pick up as much as normal, and things have been going great. And so I just want to keep firing on those cylinders, and I've been working really hard to do that. So, there just kind of has to be those toss-ups, but doing that I think is really important. If you do that all the time, I think we've all, either in our own lives or with people we follow, I think we've all seen those examples when, someone comes back and says like, okay, I'm doing this YouTube channel, twice a week, every week forever, and then they do it for like a week, and then they're gone for 4 months, and they come back like, okay, now I'm doing it, switched everything around, and I'm doing this, and we're going to do it, it's going to be just all the time, and then they disappear for a year, or they just kind of give up and never stop doing it. And, that's obviously not a great thing probably, but I think at a certain point, it is important to just understand that like there are things that happen, and there's just changes that need to be made and issues that pop up, and acknowledging those is just authentic. And so that's what I wanted to kind of talk about, because it is a good lesson of like, man, you really just can't do it all. So that's sort of what led to that unintended break and the decision to prioritize the YouTube channel over the podcast, which I've been trying to reread. I read it a while ago, maybe like a year and a half ago. I read the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and it's like one of my favorite books. I absolutely recommend it. It's sort of like, if you're someone who's familiar at all with the idea of minimalism, which is, very appealing for a lot of reasons to a lot of people, but it's always kind of scary to put yourself in the realm of an ism, because, what are the rules? And it can just be a little scary. Essentialism is almost like much more approachable minimalism, which is really just focusing on what is essential, which is going to be entirely different for every person. The things that are essential for me to be happy and successful based on what my definitions of happy and success are different than the things that you need, the essential things that you need to be happy and successful. But it's this great book because it tears down so many common things that we encounter in our daily lives, and it just sort of blows everything up and then pieces it back together, where you can look at every part of what you encounter every day and decide for yourself, is this essential, is it not? And I love it. I've been rereading it. It's a great book, especially like right before bed or something, to just reread and check out. But there's a big point in it where he goes on about priorities and the fact that we make lists of priorities, and we have, these are my 3 priorities this quarter, and the things that we say, when really, literally, by definition, the word priority means one. You can have one priority. That's your priority. It's almost like saying, these are all of my best friends. It's like, I know what you mean, but really, like, how can you have more than one best friend? Because then they're not your best. By definition, best is one. So it's kind of that. And I laughed when I read it the first time because he goes on this whole thing in the book about priorities, and you can only have one priority. And I went to fill something out at the like main administration office for my school district, and there's literally like one of those cheesy, inspirational posters in like whatever HR office or whatever I was in that says priorities, and like I don't know what, know what they are or something. And I was just like, of course, like that explains everything you need to know about public education, because everything is a priority, which means nothing is a priority. And that's what you really want to avoid. And so, prioritizing is something that is key. This is what is my priority, followed by boop, 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 like in this order, these things. If I'm done with this, then I'll focus on this. If that's not possible, then this, then this, then that. And that, prioritization is really important, but you really can only have, one priority. And getting knocked down with, like, fortunately, like, the health issues I've been dealing with aren't, like, serious. Well, it's not that they're not serious, but people have worse health issues. And so luckily, as bad as the ones I have are, and as frustrating as it can be, at least like, essentially it just takes a little bit of time before you're back to normal. And luckily it's not like a year or something, it's usually a couple of days. And so that's the bright side, I guess, of that. And then it gives you a little bit of time. You're just kind of locked in your brain with your thoughts, which is a terrifying place to be. And you just have to kind of start having, why is this happening? For me, I know that my migraines are triggered primarily. I even went to a doctor about this who said that there's multiple triggers that people experience, but usually it's a combination of two things. So you might be really sensitive to something like a food in your diet, like dark chocolate, or you might, be really sensitive to exhaustion. But you can eat dark chocolate and you can be exhausted. However, if you eat dark chocolate while you're extra exhausted, then that can trigger something. And it's, I've been, what is 34 minus 11 is 23. I've been spending that many years trying to figure out what exactly the triggers for mine are, and I don't know exactly, but I can definitely pinpoint stress and exhaustion as being huge ones, and even positive stress. If like I used to get them when I was a kid, and I would be super excited to like go to Disneyland or go visit like a friend that I was really excited about seeing and getting to stay at their house for a long time, like out of town, and I'd be so excited that I ended up making myself sick, which is sad. It's so sad. And then I had this weird flu, which came out of nowhere. It was literally like 36 hours, like fever, flu, which is scary to have flu-like symptoms in February of 2020. But then literally like the flick of a switch after 36 hours, completely fine. And the next day I felt like better than I had felt in weeks and weeks and weeks. So I don't know what that was, but sure, I'll take it. It wasn't that bad. Still knocked me out for a couple days. But while you're doing that, you're just, I forget what that old saying is. It's something like, good health is a crown, or what is it? Your health is a crown that only the sick can see. Which, when you're healthy, you take it for granted. It's not till you're not healthy that you want to start appreciating your health. And so when you are sick, you just start thinking about like, when I feel good again, this is what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. And what can I do to avoid this? And it was really, especially considering, something like the flu you can't really control, but if I'm dealing with things that are related to stress and exhaustion, I feel like I should be able to have some kind of control over that. And so you just kind of examine things, and I know, especially this month with how busy everything's been going, that's not a sentence, but it's fine. This month with how busy everything has been, I know that my physical and even mental health have definitely been put on the back burner. And you kind of know how that goes. You sort of have a day that's really stressful and exhausting, and you're just kind of like, this sucks. I know this isn't good, but I'll just deal with it today and I'll do better tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes, you're like, okay, tomorrow it's like yesterday again, so I just got to get through this. And then the worst part of that is I've been finding myself where I wake up in the morning at like 5:15, the sun isn't even up yet. The day has not even started. And my first thought is like, I cannot wait for this day to be over, which is not a great way to spend your time. Like, I feel like everybody has those days once in a while and they're just unavoidable, but when you start having it multiple times per week and many times in a row, then you start feeling like, I should probably change something so I don't feel this way, because it doesn't feel healthy. And what I've learned after this very crazy month is I need to make my priority right now my physical and mental health, because I can't do anything else without those things. As much as I want to, make everything else priorities and all the things that I want to do in these giant checklists, if I'm not eating healthy and getting rest and taking care of myself and making sure that I, take a break when I need a break and do those things, nothing else will ever get done, because it's just, everything becomes painful. And that's tough, because we don't really live in a culture that does value those things. I mean, taking a day off work because you're sick is, luckily as a teacher, like, I have union contracts that say I have this many sick days per year, and even if people kind of like curl their noses at it or whatever, there's nothing they can really do about it. But a lot of people, like, and I've been there too, where you want to take a sick day and it's kind of like, you almost have to like drag a bodily organ into your boss's office or whatever to prove that you're sick, that you need to take this day off, when really it's like, maybe I just need a mental health day or something. And it's unfortunate, but it's just important to understand how valuable that stuff is. So the other thing that, there's a lot of things he talks about in Essentialism, but one of the other things Greg McKeown talks about in the book, in addition to the fact that you can only have one priority, is this term called protect the asset. And he explains where it comes from. I kind of don't remember because I'm blanking right now, but it basically means like protect yourself. Like, your physical body is your greatest asset and you need to take care of it. And nobody, every employer, everybody, nobody's going to tell you the thing you need to do the most right now is rest. You need to do nothing. Like, fortunately, I have like the best fiance in the world who will tell me, like, stay on the couch right now. Like, you need to stop moving. You need to like sit down, like put on pajamas. Why are you not in your pajamas right now? Like, which is good. And I need that to be smacked into me, because the rest of the world really doesn't, nobody cares about that. Like, if I say like, I can't go to this meeting because I need to go to the gym so that I can stay strong and healthy, people are like, no, that's for later. Like, if you have time on the weekend, you do that. Right now, you need to be in this very important meeting where we can plan our next meeting. That's our top priority. And that's just not, it just doesn't work. There's no reason to put yourself in that position and sell yourself out building something for somebody else. And even when it comes to your own thing, like, I know that I'm not going to be able to be the best business partner for Heather in our LLC if I'm friggin' sick all the time. And I know that I'm not going to make the best like YouTube videos that I'm the most proud of, or the podcasts that I'm the most proud of, if I'm sick all the time. If I take the extra time to focus on being happy and healthy and feeling at ease and unstressed as much as possible, then I can do those things so much better. And that just kind of needs to be the main focus, almost like forever, indefinitely, but at least for the foreseeable future, until I feel like things are kind of under control again. I didn't realize that it had gotten so crazy, but oh my gosh, it's just been completely ridiculous. So those times when I'm feeling sick or really kind of incapacitated, I've been focusing so much on how much I appreciate it when I don't feel that way. And then what do I need to do to prevent myself from being in that situation? It almost comes down to like, with, to kind of bring it back to the main topic that we always talk about. If you think of like camera gear and stuff, I tell my students this all the time. They check out cameras, they check out equipment. There's a very big difference between wear and tear and lack of care. Because, if you use something, even if you take care of it, you're going to put miles on your car. You're going to scratch and ding up a camera over years of travel and use with it. Like, you're going to just put wear and tear on things. It's normal. It's natural. But that is very different from, you get something and you just don't take care of it at all. You just throw it on the ground, or you I have this brand new camera that's beautiful, so I'm just going to throw it in a backpack with a bunch of keys and sharp objects, and it gets all beat up and scratched and messed up, and the screen gets cracked and stuff. That's not wear and tear. That's absolute lack of care. And that's kind of how your health is. There's certain points that are just wear and tear. Like, you're going to get older and things are just not going to work the way that they used to, and it's going to feel a little different. And there are times when you're going to get tired, and it totally makes sense that, after weeks long of big projects, or, as a teacher towards the later half of the school year and towards the end of the school year, you're kind of running on empty a little bit. But it sneaks up on you in a way that's scary. And I think that, at least for me, there's a lot of, it's not just normal wear and tear. It is a lot of lack of care. And I want to not do that to myself, because I want to do, because it's in no way, like, I really don't want it to come across as complaining about any of this stuff or anything. Like, it's definitely not a pity party. It's sort of the idea that, like, if you're fortunate enough to just have all the time in the world to do what you want, then great. But most of us aren't in that position. We have the things we want to do, the things we want to focus on, and things we have to do. Sometimes those are the same thing. You really want to do, if you're one of those people that has your absolute dream job that you love, and you're just 110% in on this job, and that's the thing you want to do, but it's also the thing you have to do because it's your job, well, then that's great. It kind of lines up. But for a lot of people, it doesn't line up that neatly. And so you do some things you have to do, then you focus on the things you want to do, and then life happens along the way, and wrenches get thrown into the works and all that. And even for me, like, I do love my job, and I'm very fortunate to have the job that I have. But I've also, especially this school year, just become really conscious of the fact that even working in a pathway that I built from scratch, all curriculum, all equipment, all everything, cultural, everything built from scratch, it's not something that's really like mine. It belongs to the public education system of the state. And there's just sort of a little bit of like, oh, right. Maybe I should actually be re-examining how much of myself I'm willing to sacrifice for this thing that isn't even truly, truly mine. And, I kind of hope you understand what I'm saying when I say that. But that's why then it's like, okay, so I'll look at this YouTube channel that I want to build, or that I've been building, where I love doing it, and it's really fun, and it's mine. Like, I can decide where to take it. I can decide what goes on it. I can decide when to do stuff, what to do stuff. That's probably something that's worth the energy of focusing on, especially if that then leads into, more business opportunities, whether it's clients or collaborations or whatever, but things where I'm much more in the driver's seat building my own thing. And it kind of, it kind of goes, every like analogy I look through is either cameras or education, because all I do is like talk about and make videos about camera stuff and then work as a teacher. So I'm sorry. But it reminds me of, there's the crazy debate about whether or not college is worth it right now. And that could honestly even be worth its own podcast episode. But a lot of times what I have to tell people is that college with purpose is an investment in yourself. And that is something that no one can take away. And that's important to remember, especially when you're in your early 20s, when you're college age, and you start to see people around you who maybe didn't go to college doing way better than you financially. And I remember busting my butt and like literally not having a day off from school or work, every day going to either school or work, never having a solid day off for sometimes years at a time, no hyperbole. And then looking at other people who didn't go to school, didn't seem like they were working as hard as I was, and they were, making significantly more money. They were able to live in much nicer apartments on their own. I was like renting a room for someone. They had nice new cars, all those things where you're just like, oh, like I've never had that, when you're young and you've never had any of that kind of stuff. it just was kind of like, why am I doing this? But what I would see, especially because one of my biggest jobs throughout college was working at Trader Joe's, which was wonderful overall, like great. But, and one of the great things about Trader Joe's actually is their pay is terrific, especially for like grocery work. And if you're a manager at Trader Joe's, you can easily make high 5 figures, low 6 figures. If you're just, actually, I should say like an assistant manager. If you go into like store management levels, you can go way beyond that. And so there's a lot of people who worked at the company, during and straight out of high school, got into those full-time positions, and they're making like $85,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year, which is incredible. And they're happy as can be. They love their jobs. And then for whatever reason, management changes, the company's priority shifts, whatever it is, and they lose their job, and that's it. And they have not really anything to fall back on. And I saw that while I was in college happen a lot of times, and I realized that's because they spent the last 10 years or whatever investing in somebody else's thing. They were making this great salary, and they had this job they loved, but they were not in charge of it. They were not in control of it. It was somebody else's. Somebody else owned it the whole time, and it can go away very, very quickly. And it just taught me the importance of investing in yourself. So I was still busting my butt for school and work, and I was completely broke and all this stuff. I knew that it was an investment in myself, and that down the line, no one would be able to take that away. It was going to be this thing that's like, regardless of how bad of a financial decision it can be for some people, going to college has never decreased someone's earning potential or limited their options in life. And, I just kind of kept that in mind, and you just have to play the long game. But that's a tricky thing to devote so much of yourself to something that's not yours. So that's kind of, I want to focus on my health because that's my thing. No boss or supervisor is ever going to care about how I feel, like physically. No, they just want me to be there and do the job the best that I can because that's my job to do it. So I need to take charge of that. Nobody, no boss or whatever who's in charge of some other thing is going to care about my thing that I'm doing on the side as much as I do, or as much as my partner in that thing does. So I need to take control of that and need to make that work. And that is only going to work with health coming first, and then being strategic and being smart with it. So fortunately, as we've talked about in past episodes, beginning of last summer, I started this strategy on my YouTube channel where instead of just trying to make a video in time to meet the upload deadline, or whatever I was doing at the time, I worked really hard to create like a few extra videos, and my schedule is only once a week, which isn't too intense. And then always just having like 3 or 4 videos scheduled out, so that way I'm always ahead and I have a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of breathing room. And now that I've been doing that for like 8 or 9 months, it's been such a saving grace, because it's not only given this really great level of consistency to my channel, but it's also protected me when stuff happens. When a month like this happens, like right now, currently, I only have 2 videos scheduled. Normally, I'd like to have like 4 right now. So I'm actually a little bit stressed about it, because now I'm like, okay, when am I going to have time? I'm really busy with like a work trip right now and student stuff. And when am I going to have time to make a video that's decent, that I actually am proud of and that I want to make? And oh gosh. But having that cushion, it's like a savings account. It's really come in handy when there's times where it's like, I just can't do anything right now. And there's still going to be something that I'm proud of that I can share with people, or that will even automatically be shared with people, even if I'm like sick and feel like I'm dying. And that has been hugely helpful. So a strategy like that, I think, has become completely invaluable over the last year in reducing stress and making things manageable, and finding that, probably never totally achievable work-life balance thing that we're kind of always going for. But unfortunately, I never really do that with the podcast, because for me, what I looked at is like the YouTube channel is ultra strategic I mean, not in a bad way, in a way that's actually super fun and that I love. But that's, I want to hit the, what do you call it? I don't know what it is because it's the friggin' internet, but the time when the video comes out, the schedule, the upload schedule, even though everything's already uploaded and scheduled early. But I want to make sure not to ever miss that. That's really important. I know there are people who say, like, it doesn't actually matter, like, it's not going to help your channel grow or not grow just because you did everything at the same time every week for a certain number of weeks. But just for the sake of consistency, like building a community of people that know on this day they're going to open up their, phone or their subscription feed and they're going to see a video from you right there. I think that's really important to me, and just looking through the channel and seeing, you can just see that has been, it's not sporadic, it's not chaotic, it's not unreliable. It's like you can set your watch to it. It's very, very predictable and consistent. The podcast is different because I specifically don't really want to schedule out episodes of it, even though it would be kind of easy to do, especially because this isn't like a hugely edited podcast or anything. But the reason that I don't do that is because I like for it to be a little more off the cuff, maybe a little more rough around the edges in a way, but where I can just sort of deal with what's happening at the moment, which is usually something that's like really exciting, or a thought that's been on my mind, or something that's popped up after after working on a project or something like that, and I can just record it and then, not necessarily upload it right away, but we schedule it one day in advance or something. Like today's Saturday the 29th, and this episode is for Monday, so March 2nd. And that's usually how I'll do that, which is usually not a problem until, life happens and there's just not time to sit and record and then, upload and prepare a podcast episode because it just doesn't fit in the schedule. But the point of all that is just sort of figuring out what works for you specifically in your goals. I know the podcast is very much just like a thing that I do purely for fun and just to see what happens on the side, whereas the YouTube channel is for fun, but I have, goals for that are a lot more concrete and specific. And so I need to treat that a little bit differently than I treat this. And that's cool. And there's other things that I just don't do. It's like social media. I forget where we were, but this kind of happens everywhere. I think I was at a networking event of some kind or other with Heather recently, and someone came up to her and was like, yes, they found out what she does. They took her card. And of course they're like, oh, I really want to start a YouTube channel. I need to get on social media. I need to get on all the social media and all this kind of stuff. And Heather and I both looked at each other and then, told this person, like, well, you don't need to be on everything. Like, you need to figure out what's going to work for you. And if I remember right, I think she was a realtor, maybe. And it was just kind of like, okay, so you probably don't need to be on YouTube necessarily because you're not trying to grow a global audience. Like, you're trying to sell homes to people in this local community. And so Facebook makes sense because people can easily tag other people and refer other people. And, that kind of makes a lot of sense. Instagram makes sense because you could just show your listings and things like that right there. YouTube doesn't necessarily make sense. Like, why are you going to be on TikTok for that? You don't need to be on TikTok. Get off TikTok. You don't need to be on, there's this thing that people just want to go, okay, well, I need to do all of the things now. There's all the little icons that I see on the bottom of every successful little media company. I need to do all of those. And no, you don't. You need to figure out what works for you and how those things should work for you. And that just takes a little bit of time to figure out where those land in your prioritization list. And that's, fortunately, I feel like personally I have a good grip on that right now. Like, there's certain social media apps that I just don't care about, that I'll never download the app for or create an account for. And there are others that even ones that I'm on, like, for example, Twitter. I really learned how to have fun on Twitter, and it's great, and I enjoy it. I have no idea how many people follow me or I follow. Like, I just don't even care. I don't know. I'm not aware of it at all because it's not what it's for. Whereas with YouTube, I know, like, to the minute exactly, like, what all the analytics say, probably to a level that's, like, not great, but one battle at a time, I guess. And so to kind of bring it all around full circle, that's just sort of the look, that the behind the scenes look that I wanted to give, not as an excuse as to like, oh, I'm sorry I missed like several weeks in a row, but there were weeks in a row I probably could have in that time found a way to like quickly record some very subpar podcast episode that I didn't really care about. But that's not really something I want to do. I'd rather not do that and wait until I have something that I'm excited about, that I'm interested in, that I think is valuable, and then share that. And then being able to do that in an authentic way, instead of just not acknowledging the elephant in the room of like, hey, where you been for 4 weeks? But going like, hey, this is why that happened and why it's okay that those things happen sometimes, and you shouldn't beat yourself up over it. And it's just sort of a part of how you should prioritize your life and where the priorities need to be, and the things that probably should be valued more highly and aren't, like your personal health or your emotional health, or stress levels and exhaustion levels and stuff like that. And if anything, just going through this is helpful to me, just to hear myself like process the thoughts in real time. But also, hopefully it's helpful for someone else to hear, it's always nice just when you're crazy, just like, at that level of stress and exhaustion, you hear someone else say, it's actually okay to take care of yourself. In fact, it's probably a good thing that you should do more of. Sometimes that's all you need to hear, or you just need to hear that somebody else is also dealing with these issues, even if they don't seem huge. Of course, I know there are people with bigger problems in the world, but just because there's always someone with worse problems than you doesn't necessarily negate your problems or the validity of your own problems, or the fact that you should take care of them so they don't become bigger problems. And I just kind of encourage that more healthy, well-rounded approach. So that's probably where we'll pause that discussion for today, and we'll come back to other discussions in time. I'd be really curious about doing an episode, I don't know if it fits in exactly or whatever, about college versus career. Is college worth it? As someone who's gone to college and now is a teacher, but I sometimes recommend to people that they don't go to college, or at least they don't go to, 4-year universities right out of school. Like, where does that fit? Just sort of re-examining these things in our lives that we feel obligated to do, but we don't really know why. And I don't know if that fits in with the theme of like what we normally talk about, but it all comes down into like, how can you be more effective at doing the thing you want to do? For me, that's, maintaining a career, maintaining a healthy relationship, and then also building this thing on the side that hopefully will grow into something great one day, and trying to actually enjoy my life while I do all those things. That's a pretty tall order, and figuring out how to do that, or working through that, I think is valuable and probably worth sharing a little bit. So that's where I'm going to wrap up for this week. Actually, we're going to keep it a little bit short, a little bit simple. If you do have any thoughts on any of this stuff, especially because I think we hit on some universal themes today, please feel free to reach out to me. Of course, I'm at SodarandTom on all the things. I appreciate it when people take the time to send a message. And then, of course, there's anchor.fm/enthusiasm. You can leave a voice message, and I can pop that voice message into a future podcast. I would be super excited to have your perspective as part of the show, because sometimes it's just me recording these and it can get a little bit lonely, and I would love to have voices from other people in here. We've done it before a few times and it's so much fun, and I love it, and I appreciate you spending your time with me. So until next time, please take care of yourself, and remember, it sounds like I have a tagline. I don't. I was just going to say, remember to prioritize. Protect the asset.